What is going on, everybody? Happy Wednesday. BobbyFi back as always with my man Sheets. We are so last night. Just going to talk about that real quick before we get into this. One thing again, I will say it before every show, at least in the meantime. Thoughts with Kobe and his family. Being in LA, hard not to think about that stuff. It's everywhere and truly painful. But we're trying to focus on DFS today. Try and get a little fun distraction and make some money. Last night was looking like it was a frustrating night. There's a video clip. We recorded a live video right up to lock. Me and Sheets were doing it. We had, some people in chat. It was fun. It was good times. My last pivot off of my 888 lineup, which would have finished third in the 888, had 888 lineup. So that was frustrating. And you could say, oh, well, that's all, well and good and or whatever, it happens. It's literally on video on the very last second. It's the last pivot I made. Now, I also pivoted that over. So I left it in two tournaments. I left it in the $15 buy-in. And I had one entry in the $45 tournament for this sports betting championship, which is about a $7,500 package. So I end up, by the end of it, I look down and I've got a beautiful lineup. I've got all the guys in the Milwaukee, Washington game, and chalk or not, I had all the right ones. And then I had the beautiful, just those guys with the Devin Booker. And Devin Booker, I talked about the narrative about, how much he loved Kobe, and I really bought into it. Also, his shots have trended right. If the game was going to stay close, I thought it was going to go nuts because of him. I didn't expect him to blow out Dallas by 1,000,000 points in Dallas. And honestly, if that game stays just remotely close, I run away and hide with that tournament. So now Draftkings ships me my $3,800 for tying for first. But then we have to it turns out we have to play a heads up. So basically about half my action tonight is going to be going towards a one-on-one heads-up battle for the DraftKings championship. So we need some good cash game plays today. So I'm going to actually have to look at some cash lines, which I don't usually do very often. And it reminds me of the old King of the Hill days where I used to have to play heads up a lot more. We had that great run in King of the Hill. But anyway, I'm just going to tell you right now, it's a weird slate tonight. I'm ready for it. I want to go big on this slate. I would have liked it better had they given me the money from last night and I ended up a winner. But, I'll take it this way as long as I win that package. I would like to be the sports betting champion, so why not? Let's win that package tonight, right, Sheets?
Yeah, absolutely. My review from last night, again, I was very, very – the only thing that I just kind of felt kind of crappy about doing was I don't want to say too much, but was playing X amount that I did. But that's okay. I didn't play that many lineups anyway, so it was fine. But I was happy with also our kind of assessment between the two of us of the ownerships that was going to develop as a result of the late scratches and things like that. So I think we both were in pretty good agreement that, that with Giannis out, that Beal was going to be basically a lock yesterday. And that combined with those Milwaukee values, the only issue that was going to be for me was going to be whether doing that was going to be too chalky, right? And
you were right.
Well, for me, it ended up kind of being that way because, all those guys were really chalky. And Beal ended up being, at least in tournaments I was playing, between 30 and 35%. So for me to have won, right, I would have probably had to have, taken some 5-6% shots. And I think that my approach to doing that was pretty sound. Like I went to kind of the lower owned of the shooting guards. And that's what we talked about in the live thing. And where I erred, and Bobby and I talked about this, was my assessment of just kind of like one player. Like I knew that that Butler and Beal would be popular, but I thought that Booker was going to be a little more popular than he was. I didn't think that he was going to be, that low owned. And if I thought that he was going to be as low owned as he was, I probably would have gone heavier on him and maybe would have had a shot to get, even higher up the leaderboards. So what I ended up doing was going the real lower owned worse plays, which were guys like Van Vliet and Graham and guys like that. And so that's where I didn't do anything that great. But I'm 100% happy with the way I was finding my pivots. So that one little misassessment of Booker's ownership was where I kind of was, and Bobby was 100% right on that. Bobby was like, I don't know why you think that. Like Booker is going to just be low owned. He's just going to be. And that's what ended up happening. Booker ended up being 5%. And again, if I were MMEing and entering like 50 lineups, that's where you could just take better advantage of that and like really just kind of like go heavy on a guy that's going to be really low owned like that. So you can go for other combinations, things like that. I think overall our assessment of the slate was really good, and I was very content with what I did yesterday.
So I wanted to point out also that we got a few nice messages between Twitter and YouTube about thanking us for the Booker call and winning them tournaments last night. One of the abrasive guy who we're in chat with, and I don't know why he's saying he's never won a tournament before. I felt like I know that guy's name from a lot of places, and anyway, congratulations to him.
Oh, he won?
Was that?
He won?
Yeah, he won the tournament. Thanks to the Booker call. He sent it to us.
Oh my God, that's so sick. I didn't even check. That's awesome.
We got a couple more also, by the way.
Wow.
Yeah, he didn't tag you. He wrote thanks to at BobbyFi, and then he wrote Sheets. I don't think he just tagged. I just don't think you write your name on Twitter. You didn't write Sheets of Ponds. Anyway, I just so always happy to make money for the people. That's what we're here to do. We are ready to crush at it tonight. We have a really ugly slate, which kind of makes me love it because now there's going to be value that opens up, but if there's not, that leaves us all the room in the world to be creative. You remember early yesterday we were talking about value on the slate, and the guy who stood out to me, one of them was Mikhail Bridges and Miles Bridges, who would have been nice value plays. I played them together a bunch, but they would have been really nice value plays if we didn't get all that extra value. And that's sort of what my big downfall was last night. I just went all the value and hammered. And the truth is, I'll take Luka at 30, because if Luka puts up 60 last night, I probably quadruple my money. And Luka's going to put up 60 more often than he's going to put up 30 against Phoenix. Don't you agree?
Oh, by the way, did those freaking Milwaukee guys freaking smash hard or what? You know what I mean?
They smashed so hard. You know what's crazy about that game, though, is that about halfway through the second quarter, I was going, okay, well, if it gets to be 35, I don't know if we're going to see too much of it. It was at 30-something.
Yeah.
And Beal, but to Beal's credit, we also talked about that on there. We're like, even if they're down 25, he's going to go out there trying to take every shot and bring them back. He's going to get a bunch of assists. And Beal was terrific. And you needed that Beal Booker combo with who was the other one I'm missing? Who was the monster scorer last night?
Drew would have been nice.
Oh, Drew would have been nice. Yeah, he was even low. I had a nice Drew Brandon Ingram lineup that was looking pretty strong early on, but didn't end up getting there. But yeah, Drew was huge. But basically all the guards were massive. So like even good plays that you made, like you made a nice call on D'Angelo Russell, which I thought was really good.
That too. Yeah, that's right.
But it turns out he was one of the worst plays because there just was too many good plays at the guard positions.
Well, that's again, that you get that sometimes. Like these high upside guards, how many of them appear on a slate is sometimes really important because, again, like sometimes when you want value, you pick values to get access to studs, but sometimes you put value in to get access to that second or third 8K guy. So it's interesting. Yeah,
and it's interesting going back and like looking at just real quickly like the Ilyasova massive 90% chalk. Whereas in all the small tournaments I was below field on him, and early on it looked like, oh, okay, that doesn't matter. You're gonna need him. By the end of the tournament, obviously not just because he put up only 22 fantasy points or whatever it was, which it still pays off, I guess. There in those spots, I would just encourage that we probably try and look a little bit different, some other ways with a team that's that deep. And I played 58% Ilyasova on Draftkings, and I played him. I think I played him 50%, but he was in all of my big buy-in tournaments on FanDuel, and he was in my biggest buy-in on Draftkings. But I did fade him in a lot of the other stuff, and I think that really is a clever way to go. He wasn't in a couple of my best lineups, so just thinking things out loud. Anyway, guys, I think we're back rolling again. In the last 3 out of the last 5 days I think we recorded, I've either won a tournament, almost won a tournament, or made a deep cash on a night that I forgot that I played. Anyway, but it's been going good. Sheets made some money yesterday. Let's get back to it tonight. Sheets, first thoughts on the slate?
So the way I look at this slate is twofold. On the one hand, you said it's ugly. On the other hand, this is the way I look at it. I think there are several just really, really strong freaking plays. Okay, and if this were a non-salary based site where you can play as many guys as you wanted, I could find you some really, really good plays, and we'll talk about them. But again, I'm not saying this to be sarcastic, but it's just not that easy. You just can't play all the guys that you want to play. And that's why people start saying, ooh, is there any value on this slate? And so what I did is the first where I usually start with putting the guys I kind of want, like the great kind of upper plays. I started by throwing in like the 4 or 5 quote unquote value plays, at least as of now, that are people are going to be looking to, people that are going to be owning, and they're going to be the focal point of conversation because there are some good plays people are going to want to make on the slate. So what I find is that there are some slates where there's good value that people just flock to, and there are other slates that people just force themselves into value, as opposed to maybe differentiating their builds in some other way. And I don't know, maybe today is one of those types of days.
Yeah, I agree that at early glance, and look, we're going to find out other news. Okay, so here's what I just want to throw out really quickly. Just we're going to get into narrative stuff, and I'll give myself a little bit of, it's not credit, it's just pointing out that these things do matter. There are certain narratives that you can overlook, but when you think about something like it's not a direct narrative. It's Kyrie Irving is so broken up about this thing about Kobe that he's literally debating whether or not he plays. Now, to me, that means if he plays, he's my highest owned player. I don't see him coming out and not trying to do a Kobe-like thing. I felt similarly about Booker last night, especially when you added the tough matchup for Booker over in Dallas. I feel like this Kyrie Irving is the same situation. Unfortunately, Kyrie, I don't think we're going to get extreme low ownership on him like we did with Booker. But like looking at things, I think we have to play a little bit of this card, and we have to look out for spots where that stuff really matters going forward, because there are certain guys, for example, like I wouldn't want to fade LeBron on Friday. First of all, and now I wouldn't want to fade the Lakers on this season. The Lakers the Milwaukee Bucks are the best team in basketball right now. It's not even close. But the Lakers, I really don't think that they're even that close. But the Lakers are going to win the NBA title. I'm convinced of it. It's not that they weren't motivated anyway, but this extra stuff and the way the city is united and everything, I'm sort of deviating onto different topics. But mainly what I sort of want to focus on is let's see if we can find some narrative guys. And the guy who stood out to me today would be Kyrie, to be the same version, actually the same price that Devin Booker was yesterday. He's the first one who jumped out as potentially being that guy if he plays. Now, there's also a good chance he doesn't play. So yeah,
I think after the various boxing matches they're being promoted within the DFS industry, I think we're gonna have to have a BobbyFi Sheets boxing match at some point with this narrative versus non-narrative stuff. I'm being. You're
on my side. I thought
I'm being convinced sometimes. Again, I'm trying to fight one way or the other. I'm trying, because it's on the one hand I'm naturally contrarian, and on the other hand I always like a good story. It just kind of depends on the way ownership kind of plays out.
It depends on the situation. I've been telling you this forever. It's not always going to work. But it's going to work enough. We called it with DeMar DeRozan the other night coming out strong. Called it. Remember,
I will put it to you this way. So,
remember the ultimate one last year, Sheets, though? On a 14-game slate, I played D'Angelo Russell and Jordan Clarkson at less than 1% each.
That's right.
And they combined, I think, at like 46 and 6,800 or whatever, to 135 fantasy points.
And that is the key. The key is the low ownership, because here's the thing. Like, I was watching a little bit of content earlier, and a guy that I watch sometimes who is literally the most numbers-oriented guy in the world, the guy who just literally will never budge on a narrative. Like, it's not reflected in the spreadsheet, he's not interested in it. He said, even I can't get away from freaking Irving tonight. That's how big this thing is. So
yeah, anybody who just makes a statement that narratives mean everything or narratives don't matter is stupid, in my opinion. Anybody who says they don't matter at all, you're stupid. Sorry, guys, you're stupid. To say that none of them matter, you're stupid. To say that Kobe playing his last game ever when he scored 60 points and the fact that he was only 56% owned, how do you explain that one? How do you explain?
Let me try to make it easier for people. Narratives are something that cannot be quantified as far as your ability to quantitatively project what a person will do. However, that's true. However, that does not mean they have no impact, right? So what I don't like are the people that say, well, I can't figure out how to project it, so I'm going to ignore it. I think that's the ignorant part. You know what I mean? Like, you can have it both ways. You could say mathematically you can't put a number on how much it matters, but you should still acknowledge that in some cases it matters. Even though you can't put a number on how much it matters, it just, these are not robots. These are not plots on a point. These are human beings that, whose effort in some way is driven by things other than probabilities. And I think that you can reconcile that as a math guy pretty decently, even though, you don't want to, because yes, even though it's non-quantifiable, doesn't mean it doesn't exist. And I guess I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, no, I mean, and look, I know we're not talking specifically about this slate yet, and maybe it's annoying you guys. This is good stuff that we're talking about. This is important, and I just want to make one last narratives point. To me, it all depends on situations, and they're not foolproof. But this one is like a great example. Okay, so when DeMarcus Cousins went back to
Yeah,
play
that's
in
funny.
Sacramento, who cost him over $100 million, regardless, and in his mind probably like ruined his life and all these things. That matters. Also, it matters for coaching. Isaiah Thomas getting his most minutes last year against the Celtics in Boston. Those kind of things, things like that are things you can look out for that make a difference. Tim Frazier was the fun little wild card guy who I made a fortune on 3 times in a row for a couple years back. Him and Damian Lillard were best friends, used to play together in practice every day. So every time they were playing, we were starting Tim Frazier against him when they were on the other team. And I could not believe that they would do it. So I'm going, well, they're going to play a minimum cost Tim Frazier to start out of the blue. And he goes from playing 12 minutes to playing 35 because he loves Lillard and he also plays him tough. Those kind of things matter. So anyway, we'll figure it out and we'll find out the ones for tonight. I love
so basically what you're saying in this whole lead up is that we're basically locking in Thad Young going back to Indiana in game 1. Right? We're talking
That's
about?
one that matters less, but the situation might be unavoidable. The situation might be better. Right now, I have Thad Young ranked ahead of Jakob Podol's, just to make it pretty clear.
Wow.
Because I mean, I just don't see how Chicago doesn't need to have him on the court for over 30 minutes. Well, you could say the same thing about Podol. We've seen Pop do a lot of different things, and he's got some long bodies at least that can sort of. I don't want to say like Gobert's not going to dominate you from a posting up standpoint. He's going to dominate you on the boards. They've got other guys who can board. So that's sort of my initial thoughts.
Okay, so let's go through game by game, and as you'll see, we'll get to some really, really good plays, and you'll see how they kind of filter in with this value, and we'll get to this value when we get to it, because 4 of them, I think, actually come from the same game. And I threw Bogdan in also, because we'll talk.
You don't even have my favorite value guy in there.
Okay, no, I'm not saying who your favorite's going to be. I'm just saying about the guys that are just popping that everybody's going to play. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
So we'll get to that later. So my view of the first game is that there's two. Nobody projects all that great from this game. But let me just suggest that there are 2 guys in particularly decent spots. Chicago defensively, whatever, they're better against guards. I think Sabonis can just destroy this team. Again, he's not projecting all that great, he's 9,400. it's kind of rough business, but he's certainly in a good matchup. I do think 9,400 is probably, and that's why he's projecting is not to be such a great value. I don't know if I'll get there 9,400, but he certainly has a good matchup. Mm-hmm. And the other thing, I mentioned the Thad Young. I was kind of joking. I didn't even really think he was such a great play today. I'll let you kind of think about it. But the one thing I will throw out there again is they haven't picked the reserves yet for the All-Star game. And one article I looked at was basically narrowed it down to like 2 or 3 guys who would be that last spot, and Zach LaVine would be one of them. And the other one might be another guy who we'd be lobbying for, and that'd be Bradley Beal. So I don't know if this is Zach LaVine's thing, but the All-Star game is at home. It's in Chicago, and this is may be the last push. So, and you know how I feel about Zach LaVine in general. He always is upside. They priced him down a little bit because of the matchup, which certainly isn't great. But he also he's got that spread, which I like the down, the 8 or 9 point underdog spread. So he could go after it in the fourth quarter if they're down 10 points. So nobody projects that great from this game. There's other great, much better plays. But those would be the guys I would attack from this game if I were going to attack at all, if that hedges enough.
Yeah. Okay. So just to start with the Chicago side.
Yeah.
I'm trying to look at the size issue because you're going to have – so let's just say Turner is playing tonight. Let's pretend he's playing.
Okay.
We don't know for sure. And if he doesn't play, we'll get into the Indiana side in a minute, but I'm going to say that I think that people don't have any idea the real upside of these guys. We saw what happened when Westbrook. It's pretty bizarre. We see Westbrook and Harden sit. Eric Gordon puts up 50 real life points.
Yep.
We see Giannis sit, and we see 50 real life points from Chris Middleton. So, and then we see Turner sit. We saw Sabonis sit the other day, and we see 66, 65 fantasy points from Turner. Then we see Turner sit, and we see 66 from Sabonis. So we have to do this. He put up a triple-double, obviously. We can't count on all that. But I love the idea of playing LaVine tonight. I don't know how much I'm going to end up with of him. But he is definitely a guy who is – if he's going to be overlooked again,
He always is. Just always is.
And much like Booker, and that's why we make money on these guys, is we're betting on their just absurd usage. It doesn't mean Zach LaVine, the narrative, anything that's ever going to give this guy an extra excuse to shoot the ball, I'm in. You know what I mean? I don't need the narrative so much, but I'm in anyway. And I'll just look at a tough game on the road that they're going to need him to be competitive. He's been taking 20-plus shots every single game. There's upside of 35 shots in every game. That's unlike most players in the NBA. 75-point fantasy ceiling in any matchup, which sounds crazy, but it's actually possible. Probably more realistically like a 65 here. But I think LaVine is a really good play, and I think he's going to end up being lower owned than he should be. Right now, I've got him in the 25 to 35% range, but I could see that going different ways because I love Kyrie so much, so we already talked about that.
And the reality is also that people are also going to go to Harden and to, if he plays, and to Lillard. I mean, Lillard's pretty expensive on draft.
Well, I'll get into the whole Harden if he doesn't play thing because I've got a strong take on that.
But it is kind of a short slate, and it is a little, with the exception of those guys, it is a little guard light. So maybe LaVine does get some ownership.
It's a little. So you got LaVine, but I also just want to mention like multi-tournament entries. You should definitely be considering. So oddly enough, if Brogdon's out, we have Chicago. Like their defense against the point guard has been really bad. It's strange, actually, Indiana. I think that you could make an argument for Chris Dunn. And I don't think I'm going to go there, but it's not a great slate, so I'm considering him. But then there's the Kobe White at 3.9. And basically, I'm just going to say for multi-tournament players, I know he hasn't shown it lately maybe. Although even still, he wouldn't have hurt a few of these games. We haven't seen that explosion. We've seen him miss a lot of shots lately. If he gets hot one of these days, he's going to break a slate at 3,900. He's going to put up 40 fantasy points. So I would like to get 10-ish% of Kobe White in my multi-entry lineups at this price, especially with the limited value. But
the other thing that we've kind of buried is that Oladipo is going to play, right?
I was going to get to that.
Yeah. Oh, okay. And for me, the reason why I bring that up is because I'm not going to play him, or I'm sure I'll get like 15 minutes or whatever he gets. But I think that gets me off of. I think it gets me off of the Indiana guys a little bit more.
Yeah, I think that's what everyone's going to react as if the same thing is true. And all I would just caution everybody about that is, what if Brogdon's out also? You really aren't. You're still in a plus position for every other player on that team. So my issue. So my interest in Chicago. Oh, I didn't mention Thaddeus Young. The reason. So to match up from a size perspective, thinking that assuming Turner's in, assuming everybody's in, you're going to have two bigs on the court most of the time, even somewhat bigs. So you've got Felicio, who could end up getting a little bit of extra run, which, by the way, I don't hate as a play if there's nothing else that opens up for value as a wild card. Maybe a guy you throw into 1 out of 100 lineups, but still somebody you consider. Same thing with Hutchinson. He's a little smaller, so I don't like him quite as much. Cornette is too expensive, but he's a guy I would be considering. What worries me about the Chicago team from even the wings and the guards that I mentioned is that we're starting to see a little Denzel Valentine back in the mix a little bit. I like Denzel Valentine's game in general. I'm certainly not playing Denzel Valentine. But I just want to look ahead going forward that it might take away some of the LaVine usage. It might take away some of the Satoransky usage. Satoransky, it is actually taking away from Satoransky already. But I think there's some stuff to do with these Bulls tonight. I just don't know. So I'm sort of locking it into to mostly Thaddeus. I mean, you think about just the minutes. I feel like there's safety for him. I think his 30-minute projection is too low. I think he plays more like 35 plus if the game's close. I really do. I just don't see how they match up otherwise. Now I could see foul trouble or whatever. I'll play anybody who will foul out at 5,300. So yeah, Thad Young definitely high on my list. I also love him as a potential pivot off of what might be a chalky Podol. And at 5,600, I just don't see the reason why I would go for a chalky Podol over a less owned Thad Young. And you know what I will say is we can joke about the narrative in this one or not. It's not that it's more that I think about what is Thad Young thinking in this game? Now he took his second most shots of the season the one time he played Indiana, so you can look at that. I don't know. It's an interesting.
I think it's fine. I don't think it's a big deal.
Yeah, but I do believe in a little, like, Thad Young was once a good basketball player, and he still is pretty good. But don't be surprised if he's a little more involved and playing with former teammates. I don't know which way the narrative strikes exactly, but I think any little extra boost you can give to a guy on the slate where you don't love a lot of players at that price, I'm going to give it to him. So that's where I'm at.
All right. Memphis, New York. You're going to have to explain a price to me. Again, it's a call it recency bias or whatever, but I basically been smashing with Valanciunas every night, and last night he did really, really well at 3% ownership, and I think his price went down, and he's playing the Knicks. I don't exactly understand it, and I was expecting when I woke up and saw was going to look at the projection that he project to be just huge chalk and whatever it is, but not even projecting all that well. I just don't quite understand it. So you could just again, maybe I'm just getting in too long that I'm trying to replace my own assessment for others.
No,
but
I'll tell you exactly what it is in a minute. Go ahead.
Okay, so he looks just awesome to me. Other guys from Memphis in this game, the guys I always play. I mean, like Morant, 7,200. Again, this is a back-to-back, so it's not as easy, but Knicks stink, right? So I would do the same thing I always do. I'd play Morant. I would pick my choice between Triple J, and Giannis. I always end up with Valanciunas anyway. I don't think I play Jaren Jackson Jr. like ever, only because I end up with Valanciunas all the time. I don't want to play both of them. But there's like talk about like other guys from Memphis you could play. I heard we joked about it yesterday, but is Josh Jackson going to be back in the rotation? I don't know, but
no. First of all, not a rotation. He's coming up from their G League thing.
Okay.
I don't know for sure that he'll even play tonight.
Okay.
I don't know if he even went back because then they've got this guy Guterich. Like, yeah, we're not getting into that nonsense yet.
And then Randall will be my play for the Knicks. Mitchell Robinson it's going to be a really disgustingly insane pivot on FanDuel, by the way, at the same price as like 70% on Pirtle. We can talk about that later. But
I thought I was going to get there with Mitchell last night.
Yeah, I did too.
He was off to a nice start. Only played 17 minutes and put up 23. He would have gotten there.
But I don't know. I like Valanciunas.
Yeah, I really think you want to try and get exposure to this game, especially the fact that it's in New York. It should stay close. The pace Memphis plays at is incredible. I actually think my favorite play in this game is Ja Morant. I actually love the idea of running Ja out there against Peyton on the other side. It's an interest. I don't know how much of it I'm going to end up with. And again, we'll go through my ownership at the end of the show. But I just Ja Morant is too cheap, and I don't think he's been anywhere near his ceiling. Now, the second of a back-to-back, sure, but did play a little less minutes than the front end than he usually does.
Yes,
40 minutes last night.
He did.
I'm much more worried about Valanciunas on a back-to-back and a 3 and 4. They're playing a 3 and 4 on top of everything else. Okay. I also talk about little extra narrative things. Now, I know these things shouldn't matter to people. It is absolutely a fact, and it's not just because the Knicks suck. It's partly because the Knicks suck, but it's going back to the Jordan days. It's going back to the way back in the days. People want to show up at Madison Square Garden, especially young guys. We've seen it before with a lot of different guys. I've tried to target this. To me, the only one who that makes sense to try and go after somebody is the Ja Morant superstar thing. First time in New York. Let's give it a shot. I think you're going to get no ownership on this guy as of this morning. And he's becoming quickly one of my favorite plays on the board. I just worry. I want to play Valanciunas in this matchup. I think he smashes. I feel good that they've been a little more well, the minutes are always sort of what they are, but it's hard to ask for a guy who doesn't play more than 30 minutes hardly ever. And how many did he end up playing last night? That's very important, actually. If he played more than 30, Valanciunas. Yeah, I would be very wary of playing Valanciunas tonight, just for that reason. But I do think there's an interesting thing. Like, I almost wish this game was even later so we could try and speculate, because I kind of have some interest in playing Brandon Clark.
Okay.
I actually threw him into a lineup because he happened to fit in one spot last night. And I just was watching the game and just was really impressed with that activity and athleticism. And if Valanciunas is limited, or for God forbid he sits, Brandon Clark could end up just absolutely smashing in this spot. Like, you need a little bit of size to match up, right? So him and Jackson would be the main guys. So you would look a lot at Jackson and you would look a lot at Brandon Clark if we expect Joe Val to be out at all. So this is a game that I sort of want to build a little target stack around. And also, if Joe Val is unowned, I think we take a shot back on him. But I think he's going to have some ownership, which for Joe Val means anything above 10 to 15%.
And what do you do on the Knicks side, like Randall? And then
This is what we do on the Knicks. So I'm going to do it the old school way that I used to. I just go game by, like when I break down games, just try and go one side then the other.
okay.
Just because it's a little bit hard for me when I try and I get scattered if I don't. I think on the Knicks side, Elfrid Payton is the best play. I think the minutes are pretty solid there. He is their point guard. It's it's not exciting when you look at everything, but then again, it doesn't look. It's weird because Elfrid Payton, you would think, oh, high volatility, no consistency. Who trusts the Knicks? But the truth is, he's been nothing but extremely consistent. He has put up like 30 or more in 6 straight games, and at 6,300, and this is a ceiling matchup for him. This is a ceiling type of environment. Let's play some Elfrid Payton. This team, Memphis is good, but they can get sloppy with the ball. Elfrid Payton can get some steals. He can get it for you a lot of ways. I feel like he gets overlooked. So I actually think on the Knicks side, especially if I'm going to stack the game like we always talk about, you want to try and take the point guard if you can. So I sort of like the idea of playing both point guards. I don't mind. I think Julius Randle is going to get too much ownership for his price, in my opinion. That's just my personal take. I think he's going to be extremely popular. I like him better on FanDuel. I think on FanDuel you have a really easy build at power forward if you want to play just Randle and Sabonis because of the pricing. But I don't really know like how else to attack this Knicks side. So maybe we can revisit it if you want to, and maybe there's somebody you're going to mention who I'm not thinking of. Like I guess the next guy would be Bobby Portis. But I want exposure to this game. I'm just worried about the number of Knicks bodies, and I think I'm just going to stick with the main guys. Marcus Morris actually would strike me as being a good play. I noticed last night, like I don't like the way that they do things in New York in one way. Well, I don't like a lot of things they do. But they sort of like take turns. There's not a lot of ball movement a lot of the time. Even Peyton, when he's doing it, is sort of creating for just one other guy. So I don't want to pick too many of them, but I'm definitely looking to try and play one or two, and I'm leaning Peyton as being my priority.
All right.
Anybody I'm missing? Anybody you want as an off the board play? Like this is your Knicks, so you get to.
Yeah. Dennis Smith Jr. is up to 15 minutes in the last game, and Frank Ntilikina got only 3. He was out like a month with an injury. Came back. They threw him in for just like 4 minutes against the Lakers, and in a close game, they played him 15 minutes yesterday.
Now, did he close? I didn't take a look at Popcorn Machine or anything yet. Did he end up closing by chance?
I doubt it, but I did remember seeing him in there in the fourth quarter for a little bit, and.
So he's not closing. Could they end up having a situation tonight where it ends up being him and Peyton on the court at the same time? Probably not, right?
Doubt it. But again, that was you asked for it off the board. That's the guy I was kind of thinking about. So, yeah. So
we might also have to upside one other guy. The one other, if there's no value that opens up. Sorry. Look, I'm not saying you want to load up on this guy, but Reggie Bullock is going to play 28 minutes, and just because he was terrible last night, he's going to maybe play more minutes, actually. I don't think we should just completely avoid a guy who's going to play that kind of minutes in a really good games type of environment. So I feel like we can look at him as a potential value.
All right. Now it's funny, when we get through, we've gone through some kind of like not sketchy games, but not just tremendous values, tremendous plays. But you'll see when we go through some of these better plays, it's hard to get so many of them in. So that's why we have to look at these kind of fringy type things. So like, for example, we go ahead to Detroit and Brooklyn. I mean, look, narrative aside, Kyrie looks like an awesome play in this game. So throw the narrative in. It just can do nothing but help. And he looks to be just a tremendous play. And he's 9,100. And I think that it's pretty important that you try to get him. And on the other side, I think that Andre Drummond at 9,700, I think he is a really, really good play also. And he's a spend up where you're going to have to find money for him. But I think that both these guys are really, really strong. And part of what makes the slate kind of difficult between those two and other guys we're going to get to later. But I honestly didn't like anybody else in this game, but I did like both those guys a lot.
So those guys are going to be the mega chalk. One guy who I feel like the minutes projection is just way off, and I wonder if you agree with me on this, Reggie Jackson. Why do we think the minutes won't continue to increase? Like he played 25 in his last game. and that was in a 3 out of 4. He also got the day of rest on the 25th. Now, I know it's worrisome. Well, actually, no, he had a day off in between. Reggie Jackson should be at least in consideration, shouldn't he, at 4,500?
Yeah, I think it's bodies. You know, I think Galloway and Bruce Brown Jr. back. And, you know, obviously, and there's Rose and stuff like that. I don't know.
He's above all, like, he ranks above every one of those guys.
Yeah, I know that. But I'm sorry. But when we're talking about maybe an upside from those 24, 25 minutes, it's kind of hard, I think. And if Snell is back, too, that's another guy who could eat into a little bit of that.
With the way that Brooklyn plays 3 guards, don't be surprised if you see guys like Snell, Rose, and Jackson on the court at the same time, or like Rose, Snell, and Brown. I actually think there's a chance like Dumbuya, who also would be based on his minutes, absolutely in play at his price. But I think, and well, maybe you could make the argument, throw him in at 5%, half a denim or whatever. I think those minutes could get trickled over to the other guards because the fact that Brooklyn is going to play 3 guard lineups basically most of the time.
I guess that makes sense. It seems
they have a lot of guards. The only problem is like both these teams, what's interesting about them is they both play a lot of guards.
You think Drummond's going to be more popular than Whiteside?
Yeah.
Okay.
At first glance, I immediately had Drummond and Kyrie as my 2 highest owned players.
You think Drummond's going to be more popular than Valanciunas?
Yeah. Is that a real question?
Yeah. No. I'm just looking at one ownership run, and they have Valanciunas at 20%, and Drummond.
I'll tell you what.
Drummond at 15.
I'll tell you what. The first 20 people, unless there's something bizarre that I'm missing, the first 20 people who write to me, whether it be Twitter, whether it be YouTube, whatever, I will send $5 to each of you, or however many people do it. If not 20 even make it, I'm sending out $100 if Valanciunas, just to the first people saying Valanciunas is going to be higher owned than Andre Drummond.
On which tournament?
In just overall, his overall ownership on Draftkings averaged out.
Okay, I just wanted to remind you of what we discussed yesterday, right? If Eric Haber just kind of eyeballs it and says, boy, the Valanciunas was really cheap and they're playing the Knicks, I just got this feeling that the people are going to pile on. I don't know.
Hey, you've been getting sharper and sharper with those, and you've always been pretty good at them. You've been really good lately, but I've been pretty good too about a lot of these things.
Hell yeah, that's right.
And I'm partly why, you know me, I'm the Valanciunas guy. Like I'm the one who plays him every night, even because no one usually plays him. Playing him at chalk after playing his season high of minutes on the
Who they play last night?
Memphis.
Yeah.
They played. God, I can't even think of it off the top of my head right now.
It's somebody pretty good, right?
It was somebody.
Denver, right?
Yeah.
So someone comes in, they see Valanciunas, say, boy, oh boy, scored 48 points against freaking Denver. They're dropping him in price. They're dropping him in price, and they're playing. And now he's playing the Knicks. I don't know, man.
He matched up well with Jokic. You have to understand that's why they played him more minutes. It's the same reason he always plays the more minutes. Like,
oh no, I understand. I'm just making a popularity decision.
Yeah. Hey,
okay. Man, we'll see. We'll see how it goes.
Okay. I'm actually, like, now that we're talking about it, sort of getting a little pumped up for this slate. I don't know what's going on, but I got a good feeling about tonight.
Yeah.
By the way, all I have to do is win a double up to at least have a profitable night. So.
We're gonna go live because we gotta finalize that lineup, man. We got to make sure that's
the saddest thing in my life, though, is that not saddest thing, but okay, that's a really big exaggeration. Saddest thing about that particular tournament is that it was so won and over with.
Totally done.
I had my other buddy in the tournament tweet at me, DM me saying, "Congratulations! I look forward to seeing you at the sports betting championship." And I can't remember what month it is.
Oh, guys like that should No,
he was really being like it did. I mean, Sheets, if you ever look at tournaments and see them as being like that, I would never ever prematurely celebrate. But this looked like there was. Because there was not only that, there was no danger of anyone else. There was nothing that could have happened.
Right, but it was a 20-point game though, right? 25-point game.
It was worse. If it was 20 or 25. So that was my hope, is that if they could get it within 20.
I know.
But here's the real burner though. Guess who was on the court until 1.5 minutes left in a 35-point game?
Who?
Every single other starter. Kelly Oubre was out there. DeAndre Ayton was out there, and DeAndre Ayton, by the way. That's the only guy who maybe could have cost me is if he would have scored like another 10 fantasy points. But they left him in there in the fourth quarter up by 35 for a good 7 minutes. So that's
They
weird.
couldn't have brought Booker in for just like maybe one possession to do like a Kobe, imitation or something. Dunk.
Yeah, or let him go for. He was on his way to 40 and potentially a triple double or a double double at least, and then he also could have gotten 50 maybe if he got hot. Like I don't know. I just wish that would have been a time to let him sell.
We're being selfish, I guess.
Look, if it was in Phoenix, I think Booker plays some of that fourth quarter.
I think so too.
All right, let's get over to the next one.
All right, so Utah San Antonio is where all this not where all this. I didn't want to make it sound like they're all such locks, but this is where the value for now is emerging from. So first of all, from the Utah side, they're just making it kind of difficult to avoid not taking a shot because he's going to be probably popular at Mike Conley. I mean, he's 3,800 and he played 24, 25 minutes in the last game.
Mm-hmm.
So in a slate, as they say, starved for value for now, he's certainly going to emerge as one of the leaders as far as that type of price. So he's one that you're going to have to think about. And he's going to be popular as well. The other, how do I do this? Let's do the actual plays, then we'll go back to the values. So
yeah.
on the Utah side, if you didn't want to do that, the normal guys like Mitchell looks fine, Bojan looks fine, and Gobert looks fine. And Gobert on this slate is actually going to be pretty unpopular because of
the Drummond
we already had on the other centers. So he's going to be the lowest owned of all these centers, and I'm not particularly concerned about Jakob Poeltl bottling him up. You know what I mean? He'll still get his 27,000 rebounds or whatever he gets. So
have you looked at Gobert's game log recently? Can you take a look at it while we're out here on air?
Yeah, sure.
Let's just pull it up just because I want to he had the one down game against the Houston.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
But it's all the way through, and it goes on for about 100 games. You're talking about nothing less after the 36.
And the other thing is that the Houston game, all Houston games are basically different than all other games anyway. Okay, those games just play differently, and this one was a real weird one anyway.
But also, Houston gives up fantasy points, and they are the number one team against centers in terms of allowing fantasy points. They allow the few.
Well, no, but that game was strange because all those guys were out, right? So that was like kind of a weird game.
It just was a weird game every which way. I honestly.
He scores 50 points. He scores 50 fantasy points every game. I mean, pretty much.
Yeah. So basically, we're looking at a guy who's essentially since the sixth averaging 50 fantasy points, going to be unowned in what is, I think, an elite matchup. And I just don't think. I mean, okay, I'm looking at different people's ranking systems. There's different guys out there who rate. I don't see any of Mike Conley or Rudy Gobert on any of their lists. If that's the case, I think you might want to take some serious shots on those guys. By the way, Conley also, take this for what you will. I don't even know what this means. Good friends with Popovich. Played for him on one of the Olympic teams, I believe. I don't remember what it was, but I know that there's a lot of love between those guys. I don't know what that really means, but I'm just throwing out little extra narrative things. Also, Conley, another. It's betting on these stars. Like, remember what I said about Draymond last night too? He really showed up and tried to ball out. These guys, their initial games after this Kobe stuff are just gonna. I feel like the best players are gonna try and take over even more so than usual. That's just my sort of weird take, and I think Conley having the history with him, and I don't know. I'm gonna give Conley definitely a boost tonight, and I love the Gobert call. I would prefer to play him with Drummond. You know how I go. I don't usually like to just pick one over the other if that's what other people are going to do. But I honestly don't see people picking Gobert that much. So I think Gobert is a very good shot at 50, and I think he's worth playing.
I think that Mike Conley and the guys we're going to talk about in San Antonio second, I think Mike Conley is going to be pretty heavy job on draft.
Okay, well, we'll see. I mean, it's obviously going to depend on ownership because I can make a much better case for a guy on the other side of this game.
So let's talk about that. So for I guess I'll go first then unless you want to on the San Antonio side. Well, first of all, Poeltl is he's going to be you might like this. He's going to be really chalky again. Even on Draftkings, he just is. They're going to project him for 30 to 34 minutes. Whether that's right or wrong, we'll talk about. And he's just going to be really, really chalky. He's going to project to have like 30, 35 fantasy points, and it's going to be talked about a lot. And on FanDuel, he's free, so he's going to be just set 50% plus owned over there. But remember that it's a little different being able to get a million blocks and dominate the boards against freaking Chicago than it is against Utah and Gobert. It just is. So I definitely think there's a significant amount of downside to his rates. There's a significant amount of downside to his minutes. And to me, it's kind of a classic fade if you want to know the truth. But that's just me. But the two guys that are going to emerge as, as values that people are going to play are going to be, to some extent, Rudy Gay at 3,600, but to probably a greater extent, DeJounte Murray at 4,300. So I'll let you give your opinion. I think they both again look fine. I always get nervous about playing any Popovich value, especially the guards. But I'll let you attack those guys if you want.
So the reason I love playing Popovich, I actually feel the opposite about Popovich value, because I feel like you're never going to get any ownership because we're all afraid of it, right?
Fair enough.
So a guy like a guy who I always end up playing some of in these kind of spots is Bryn Forbes.
That's awesome. Okay.
At 3,300, zero ownership really. Yep. Probably going to play the same amount of minutes as Conley, and while he obviously is not Mike Conley, he actually might be Mike Conley, because this new Mike Conley hasn't been all the same. I'm still betting that Mike Conley has some game left in him. Don't get me wrong, but we have to pick between a lot of different value on this side. Yep. And is it weird, or is it me, or is it every game it feels like I guess there was the Houston game against Utah. Every game I feel like Utah's got the value against them, which is not ideal. But Utah's been getting lit up. This is not the same defensive Utah team.
Do you realize that they got basically blown out by Houston with no players the other night?
Yeah, I mean, Eric Gordon, in all fairness, was out of his mind. But you're right. How does that happen? Yeah, exactly. So what? So why? Because he scores 50, can't you beat him? Like, I don't know what happened in that one. And I love that this game is in San Antonio. So here's the way I'm sort of ranking. First on the Utah side. Love the Gobert idea. Definitely have some Conley. I'm not going to pretend that I'm not playing him. But I just, I'll wait to see where the ownership is. I don't think there's going to be a ton of ownership. If I do think it gets to be too high, I don't mind taking some other pivots on the other side of this game, which we'll talk about in a minute. I also don't mind if you wanted to throw like I don't know, if you're making a game stack and you wanted to throw Royce O'Neal in instead, at least you get more minutes from him than you're probably going to get from Conley. Although you could argue he loses them. So I'm not especially interested in them. It's mostly just going to be Conley, Gobert, and a little bit of Ingles for me. I think it's a good matchup for Donovan Mitchell, and I don't think he's going to get much ownership. So if you want to go that route, that's fine. Just probably not what I'm doing. And then, wait, who am I looking at here? Oh, yeah, okay. I thought I saw both. I'm not going to play Bogdanovich, I don't think. Not this Bogdanovich anyway. Fine for me. The night he scored 35 real-life points and had 35 fantasy points probably took me a little bit away from him in general. On the other side of the ball, on the San Antonio side, I think it's Trey Lyles. Trey Lyles and DeJounte Murray, I'm just going to play. Like, I think taking a shot on him is like taking a shot on Conley, but he's actually shown more upside lately and probably has a higher upside in terms of potential minutes. They're probably close, actually. It's an interesting one.
I'm more interested in your other one because this one tilted me because I played Trey Lyles the other day in basically every lineup that I didn't have Pirtle. I played Lyles as a direct pivot off of Pirtle. And they both smashed. I'm not just smashed. I mean, Lyles is fine, whatever it is. And I feel as though I want you to talk me into him today because, again, like if Pirtle's – I don't think Pirtle's as forced today as he was. And if that's the case, then I'd be even more aggressive to look for some pivot.
Yeah, I don't know where the ownership's going to end up on him, but I cannot imagine that he doesn't get ownership today. So not just the fact that he's playing first of all, they don't have size. Like it's either Pirtle, him, or what's the other guy? Shemezi Mitu, who probably will get some run tonight, by the way. But we're not playing Shemezi. The thing with Lyles that's continually frustrating is that even when guys have gone out, he hasn't really gotten that minute ceiling. So he sort of hovers around this 20 fantasy points. Now, without the value we have, that's not even the worst thing in the world for us. I just want to take a quick look at something versus for him real quick.
I think he'll be 10%.
You think 10%? Okay. Yeah, I think that's fair. I think it might be higher depending on what other value opens up. Yeah. But I just want to take a quick look at something real quick from his past thing, because I do believe in some sort of look. It's a narrative that you guys are not going to love. Okay, it's the guys you're familiar with playing against, especially if you're like a role-ish player like a Trey Lyles here. So I think that he's got, he played with these guys for years. He's going back to Utah. He gets along with the team and all that stuff. They always liked him. But he's also had matchups in practice with Gobert. You'd think that might be able to give him a little bit of extra run. Second of a back-to-back here. Poto playing more minutes than he's played all season. I could just see Trey Lyles end up being the one who ends up smashing. And, well, smashing meaning, look, if he puts up 25 for me tonight, we're happy with that, right? We're thrilled. Right?
I suppose.
30,
yeah, you have to be.
As of right now, until more value opens up, we're thrilled.
No, you have to be, because none of these other guys are you know what I mean? Like, not that great.
Yeah, so then at the same time, if I can get 30 out of Dejounte Murray, great. And if I want to run it back with a little bit of either Conley and Gobert or just Gobert, I think you have like a nice little mini stack that is actually off the board. I'm also going to throw out that I don't like him as much as I did the other day, and honestly, he didn't pay me off the other day either, but I think that that's just there could be a game with this particular lineup where Rudy Gay gets going. And I wanted to throw in that I do think DeRozan is a strong play. I just prefer the other guys. Like in a vacuum, I prefer Levine, but I do like that DeRozan has been crazy aggressive. Without Aldridge, I think that he does get a huge bump. I think he was emotionally shook the first game against Toronto after Kobe was out, but came right back, put up 21 shots the other night, scored 53 fantasy points. Feels like a really strong play to me. Utah, we want to beat them with wings in general. So I actually like this game quite a bit, and that's sort of the way I would rank them: Lyles, Murray, DeRozan, and then you get maybe some exposure to Forbes, Gay. But I do think you're looking at playing a lot of different potential guys in this game.
Can I tell you what bothers me about the Rudy Gay play? What bothers me about it is that in the last game we made a really, really good case, and again, maybe we're not Popovich, we're not we don't get paid as much as he does to do this, but we made a really good case that Gay was going to start, was going to be was going to be needed, was going to fill in that LaMarcus Aldridge role and stuff, and he didn't even start. They barely, I would say barely played him or whatever it is. And I was a little bit, I don't want to say, look, he played more minutes, I guess, than he had. So I guess that's fine. But I felt as though that was a better spot for him to get that minutes upside than maybe a spot like this one. But, I ended up playing him anyway, even though he wasn't starting, just because I knew he'd be like low owned. He was like 10%. And he had chances, you know what I mean? But I don't know. That concerns me. Let me ask you a question. Between Conley, and I have my own opinion on this, between Conley, Gay, Murray, want to throw Forbes in there, Murray in there. Which of those guys has the best chance to get 40 or like 35? You know what I mean? Like, to actually win you.
I think it's Murray, and it's not even. I don't think it's even close. Conley would be second, just because you could see an increase in minutes, but like Murray has done it, twice in the last month. You know what I mean? Like, at least we can look at that. And even when he hasn't, he's been around the 30 range. You know what I mean? So
yeah, I agree. I was thinking about that. I was back and forth. My original thought was Conley.
By the way, Murray's been high owned. That's the only thing. I would bet you Conley's lower owned than Murray is today.
And the reason I bring it up is because what makes it difficult is that Conley and Murray, not only are they guards, but they I think they're point guard only. So you want to play guys like Kyrie, and we could talk about when we get to Lillard and Harden or Westbrook or guys like that. It becomes a little harder to play them. So maybe they'll be not as owned as maybe they could be. I don't know. It's rough.
Interesting. I mean, yeah, we'll get back to at the end going through some plays, because this is like. Okay. I feel like this is a pretty easy slate to break down initially, but we are still waiting a lot of information, so we've got a lot of potential things to change. But this next game is going to be an interesting one to try and decipher.
All right, so let's start with the I don't know anything angle. Okay, Houston's playing Portland. It's 235 million total. It's a pick'em game, and boy, oh boy, what an awesome game to watch! What a great game to be a part of, and all this great stuff. So. Who's playing? All right, so Harden, we went back and forth with, right? We thought he was out, and then when we was upgraded to questionable, we said, boy, there's just no way he's gonna sit. And then he sat anyway, and it didn't matter anyway. They ended up winning. So I'm operating the assumption for now that he's playing, but you just have to be flexible with your opinion on it, especially on DraftKings. On FanDuel, you have to kind of figure it out before 7 o'clock. I'm not going to play Harden on FanDuel without knowing if he's playing. Let's put it that way. But if I knew he was playing, I actually like him here. I think he'll end up being popular as well.
Yeah, he will be.
But I actually do like him here. I'm not a big fan of Westbrook if Harden's playing at 10-4, but you can try to talk me into him. It's probably going to be really low ownership. And on the Portland side, I think Whiteside's awesome. I think the 8,500 is going to rate him as a tremendous value, and I think he's going to be more popular than probably a lot of the centers we talked about. I think he'll be more popular than Drummond. I don't want to say I don't think it'll be close, but I think that him at 8,500 I think is kind of almost ridiculous. So I think that he's going to be really popular, but I do like him. And I'm not playing Lillard at 10-5, but I certainly see how he scores another 80 real-life points or whatever he's been doing recently. So, you can win with that, and I'm not playing McCollum or Anthony. So what do you think?
Okay, so on the Houston side, like, I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about, like, so narrative, not to mention the Westbrook Lillard thing from getting waved off in the playoffs last year and the sweep and the logo shot and everything. Whatever that means, I think you can expect Westbrook to be extremely aggressive in this game.
Okay.
Westbrook is what we always used to say. Westbrook is what would have happened if Kobe Bryant and Allen Iverson had a baby. There is a link to him, and also being from LA, going to school in LA. They played. I remember one of the interesting stories. They used to play the pickup games over at UCLA, and I was outside. I was a huge UCLA guy. I was just a big fan. I was outside because the Lakers were playing with the young guys, and this little skinny guy walked past me, but he wasn't little. He was tall and lanky, but he only 6'3" or 6'4", or whatever, and looked like he was about 10 years old. And then Kobe came out behind him, and Kobe is looking at the group of us who are sort of sitting there, fanboying or whatever you want to call it, and says, that kid might be the best player in the NBA. Or what he said is, that kid's going to be the best player in the NBA someday. So whatever it is, I don't know a bunch about their personal relationship outside of that. I know that Kobe was a big fan of his from before. When they asked Kobe who his favorite player was to watch over the last year since he's retired, he's always said Russell Westbrook. And then, of course, when LeBron came to LA, he changed his tune a little bit just because he had to. But I don't know. I'm looking for little extra reasons. I know that Westbrook wasn't great the first game on Sunday right after Kobe passed, but he did take 29 shots, and we didn't have Harden, obviously. I think I might make a little bit of a gamble here and just think that everything brings Westbrook back to this intensity that we're used to seeing from him. And honestly, he's been great enough anyway to actually be justifiable here. Lillard has gotten him. He's gotten Lillard in the past. Certainly not worried about any defense from Portland. So I am a very big fan of Westbrook, even with I don't usually like attacking with guys like Whiteside in the middle, but I'm fine with it here. And I'm going to be well above the field on Westbrook regardless of what that means, whether Harden plays or not. Even if that just means 15% versus 5%. But if Harden doesn't play, I think that Westbrook obviously will get much more popular, but I don't mind running a Westbrook. And I actually think with what Lillard's doing, if we can find value, we can make a strong case for him even at this extremely expensive price.
I have a question for you, Bobby. I mean, you've been doing this NBA DFS for like a long time. I know you've seen, like, again, I guess you would probably say Westbrook back when he was 3 years ago, whatever. But have you ever seen somebody get 250 fantasy points over a 3-game stretch?
I think that Harden and Westbrook have probably done it, but okay. Top of my head, it's hard for me to remember. But I mean, the one thing is, we've got McCollum supposedly back tonight, right? So
yeah, I mean, and quite honestly, not to make excuses for everything, but all 3 of those games, his last 3 games, he was basically in a smash perfect spot for different reasons. I forget them all, but I just remember that all of them, he was huge chalk. All of them, he was expected to do maybe not exactly that, but between McCollum being out, between the him versus Luka thing, which you talked about, and between the first game back off of Kobe, whatever. I mean, like, not to put a damper on them, performances or whatever. But those were kind of extenuating circumstances.
Yeah, and I just think, like, again, betting on superstars at this type of time is a good thing, or guys who think they're superstars. And I just want to throw out one other guy here. I think Carmelo Anthony is the natural play, just even separate from any narrative thing. He's in a really, really good spot. Like, I've been just trying to attack wings against this Rockets team, wings and power forwards. I don't think I might even just block Whiteside out of my list. I have no interest in Whiteside.
Wow, that's interesting.
It's a terrible matchup. Absolutely horrible matchup for him.
Yeah, we talked about that. He doesn't like to run down the court too much.
Doesn't like to run down the court, and you have the best team in the league against centers. So it just seems like a tough spot to try and pay $8,500 for the guy. Now, if he ends up low owned, sure, take a shot, but I don't see that happening. So I'm much more on the either Lillard, Carmelo side. And honestly, I really don't mind CJ McCollum either. I actually think he could end up being a sneaky great play in this kind of a matchup because it's a ceiling type of environment for a guy like him, And it's funny because even with the going off that what's his name did the other night, he still put up 40 fantasy points in his first game back, even with Lillard going off. I just feel like you probably wanted somebody from this Portland side, and I'm leaning CJ McCollum or Anthony and trying to get to some Westbrook on the other side, but. I've named a lot of plays I like on a slate that I thought I didn't like very much, so we're going to have to go through the ownerships at the end.
Well, that's what I was saying. You know what I mean? Like there's some great plays, and you got to figure out how to play them. Whiteside, by the way, I don't know if Capella was in, but last time these guys played, which was pretty recently, he got a score which is just is just a score. He had 45 fantasy points, 37 minutes, 18 rebounds, whatever. So 18 and 18.
No, that's a solid game. It feels like 18 and 18. Doesn't it feel like that should be more than 45 fantasy points?
It does, doesn't it?
It does. And what happened? I guess they didn't get any blocks that day.
Yeah.
All right, so let's move on to the final.
Okay. So last game, Oklahoma City against Sacramento. I'm not getting to anybody from Oklahoma City, actually, as being a good play today. On the Sacramento side, the two guys, again, I'm looking to are De'Aaron Fox, again, another 8,100 guard who I'm interested in. And then a guy who I have to work this out because he's rated, at least right now, it's one of the sites being, this can't be, but I'm seeing 45% ownership on Bogdanovic. I don't see how that's possible.
Just early in the day thing.
Yeah, it has to be, right? But, the reason for that, he's only 5K, and he's probably going to start again and get 30, 30
Are they sort of
minutes.
providing ownerships? Because, he's really cheap on, Yahoo, and he's really cheap on FanDuel.
Yeah, but I see a 35% FanDuel also. So, and Yahoo, pretty expensive. They're saying total 99% on Yahoo. It's pretty funny. Okay, so so Bogdanovic, again, I think I hate to cop out, but I think it's an ownership thing. I certainly love him. I certainly like him. Let's put it that way. I like him at 5K. I like him. I like him getting minutes however he gets them. I'm obviously on the one hand, I'd almost rather him play with the reserves or whatever. But that's now become the awesome Buddy Hield role. Buddy Hield is now getting the juicy Bogdan role of coming off the bench and playing 30 minutes with reserves. But yeah, I'll take 30, 32 minutes, however I can get him, I guess, out of Bogdanovic at 5K. It's certainly not a tremendous matchup, but again, it's an ownership thing. If he somehow gets ignored and I can get him at 10% or less, sure. But I don't know if I want to play him as chalk. And that's pretty much all I had from this game.
Interesting. Okay. So I don't know what's going on with me today. For some reason, I seem to have more interest in a lot more players than usual. And that's weird, especially because I don't like this. My first thoughts on the slate was but I think that not having anyone you have to lock in kind of a thing is making me just want to take different types of chances. So just ranking it in order I actually do like the OKC side of this game.
Okay.
Sacramento has played lightning quick since Fox has been basically healthy and back. Playing back to old Sacramento type of days. Now, it's a tough decision for me between Chris Paul and Shea. I think I'm leaning a little bit Shea, but so Chris Paul, I also wonder about him playing. Another one who was really broken up by the Kobe thing. May not even play. If he does play, I think that little extra.
He ruled out the other day. I think he'll play.
They ruled him out though because of Kobe.
I know that. That's
I'm
my
just
point.
saying, if that's the case, like we should take that then as this being. If I want to attack these guys who knew Kobe, who Kobe was a part of their lives, who
I mean,
really.
I really hate to say this, but and again, maybe I shouldn't be the one to say this, but I think that if he takes 2 days off by Kobe, he's going to get shit. I just do.
Who's going to give him shit?
I just think he will.
Well, anyone who says has an issue with that, and I'm sorry, I
I'm
don't
just,
know.
I just think.
They can go, you know what, themselves. Like that's
Yeah.
disgusting. People deal with grief. I mean, you know how big of an effect. I mean, everybody in the NBA broke down. Everybody. I mean, it's not. This is it's a brotherhood more like than any other sport, and it lasts your entire life after you're done. Bill Russell is still a part of the NBA, or Kareem is still a part of the NBA. Maybe Bill Russell's a bad example. But these guys stay as a part of the NBA forever. Anyway, it's a painful thing, and Kobe. You say what you will about him, I still believe he's the most important player in the history of basketball, just ahead of Jordan. For only one reason, that he carried on a torch that we didn't know who was going to be able to do it right after Jordan retired. And Jordan sort of did the same thing with Magic and Bird, but anyway, whatever. I'm digressing.
I think he plays.
So if he plays, I think we have to prioritize him a little bit.
Okay.
And I want to find out early in the day. I want to get information. Road game should be tough. He plays really, really well in tough games. Maybe give him a boost over Shea in this particular one. Now, Shea, I just like because I like from a matchup standpoint. He even projects really well. He feels pretty safe with upside. But the guy who kind of stands like way out is he's not getting the minutes. And I'm just wondering if they're ever coming back, because I would love to speculate on Steven Adams at 5,500. In what I consider to be a very, very good matchup. So that's the only one I'm sort of flirting with, but I don't know if I'm going to end up even doing anything at all with it. It's just wanted to mention it because if he's healthy and if he's a good to go at 5,500 and going to play 30 minutes, then we're in. If he's playing 25 or less, I'm not in. I do think the Sacramento side is really interesting, but I love Bogdanovich. I will probably be ahead of the field even in a high-owned situation, just because of I'm watching the minutes be back there. I hate that they're playing him with Fox. I would love it if they announced today that Bogdanovich is back on the bench and Hield is starting again, because I don't see that happening, by the way, because they just made the greatest comeback in NBA history the other night.
That was ridiculous.
And then, just to point that one out too, first of all, bizarre night. You have Buddy Hield, who's obsessed with Kobe Bryant, started playing basketball because of Kobe Bryant. Where's Kobe Bryant's number? He goes out there, he scores 42 points, has 5 assists and 3 rebounds. So he had 24-8, you know what I mean? Which is kind of Kobe's numbers, obviously. And then they overcame a 24-point deficit with 8 minutes to go. And then that's the Kobe thing part of it. But the other part is the 18 points in 3 minutes, being down 18 in 3 minutes to come back. Buddy Hield scored more fantasy points in that time than he would pay himself off his salary in that point. Yeah. If I'm going to look for an extra narrative, there's a great example of what happens when you can find that extra narrative. Buddy Hield played, after getting moved to the bench, played his yearly high of minutes. He had one game against the Pelicans where he played more in overtime. And by the way, took 24 shots, interestingly enough. These numbers are everywhere. He did make 9 of 14 threes, so he was lights out. But I just think it's worth speculating on a guy.
Let me tell you, there are 2 ways that you can react to, and from coaching, I figured there's 2 ways you can react to being sent to the bench, especially if we're a guy who was relied on to shoot the ball a lot and be a big part of your team. One is to kind of crawl into a hole and pout and be afraid or whatever, or the other is just get really, really mad and just freaking just go crazy. And you saw which way Hield opted to go as far as that goes. So yeah, that's
no, but I think honestly that had more to do with Kobe than I really do. He said it after the game. He said it's all he could think about during the game was Kobe. That's all. I mean, he loved. There's certain guys with extra love. Buddy Hield, Joel Embiid. There's guys who literally got into basketball who are from other countries because they watched Kobe Bryant play, and Buddy Hield is the ultimate example of that. Not to mention he's a gunner, so anything that gives me an excuse to play a gunner who's going to take extra shots, I'm going to jump all over that opportunity. So those are my 2 favorites from this game. And then I think you can always play De'Aaron Fox. I just think that it's 51 out of 3 nights for him probably in general in this matchup. Maybe 1 out of – so worth playing, but not a guy I want to prioritize like crazy.
So I just pulled up the list of forwards. from DraftKings, because the reason I did that is again looking at the different values between Conley and DeJounte Murray, which I guess are the two best ones now you think about it, is if they're taking up spots. I mean, like the spots I want to play are the guards. You know what I mean? I'd rather play guys like Harden or Westbrook, one of the others. You want to play Lillard, Kyrie Irving, or Levine, Fox. What's good about Bogdanovich, I'm pretty sure he's still small forward eligible.
Mm-hmm.
Is that true? I hope that's true. So that at least, you know what I mean? Like that at least opens up some guard positions to put in,
Yeah, so that was the move last night that I think we all made the mistake, or I made the mistake on, even in my good lineup that won and tied for first. We should have always been playing Bradley Beal in the small forward spot.
Yep.
And I even said that on air. I just ended up having some lineups with him in the shooting guard spot. But I think this is a great example of that. Bogdanovich saved us a few of those guard spots. Although I'm not as in love with the guards as I always am, but like if you wanted to go pay down and then pay way up, like Conley, you could play a Conley, DeJounte Murray, Harden type of lineup, or Westbrook or something like that. Then you're going to want to use that small forward spot for something else,
Well, you could play. I think that you could play two centers. You could play kind of a chalkier either. Well, you don't like Whiteside, but let's just say you did, right? Like a Drummond or Whiteside. And then you could play like a lower owned Gobert as like a second center. And then you could play some guards, play value guards that way.
Yeah, that's right. So here's the thing. I just was looking at it yesterday. So how many points did Bradley Beal score yesterday, fantasy points? I think he had 70-something, 80-something, right?
Oh, I don't think that much.
Not that much? He had 47 real-life points, so he had to have something.
Well, that probably doesn't mean anything. Maybe I think in the 60s.
Okay, so I was wrong. So I predicted on our show, but that was an early morning prediction. When he thought he was going to be low owned, I predicted 70 fantasy points for me.
Okay, that could be.
And I still I'll still call it a good call. So we're 2 for 2 on calls. So at the end of the show, I have to give a quick call, but I'll unless you have anything else, I want to real quick jump to my ownerships.
Yeah, let's go for it.
So I've got Kyrie in a class of his own at the moment. I'm going to have to change this because I have a lot of players 25% or more. So I'm just going to read you sort of my tiers. Kyrie tier. Then Drummond a little bit higher than everybody else. These are chalky ones. Then you have the Bogdanovich, and I'm putting Murray and Trey Lyles in the same tier. I know they're all different price ranges, but those are the guys I want to have in the 40-ish% range, maybe even. I could even see myself going higher or lower depending on some certain information we'll get later on. Then I have another tier where I really like Elf Payton, and I don't know if I'm going to end up with as much of him as I have right now, but Elf Payton, Russell Westbrook, Chris Paul, Thad Young, DeMar DeRozan, Buddy Hield, all these guys are sort of in a similar range for me, and Mike Conley. Now, they're all obviously different prices, but that just gives you an idea of some of the guys I'm targeting. And then just beneath them, the Levines, the McCollums, the Carmelo Anthonys, they're all similar. So I'm going to fine-tune this and get it a little bit better. We'll do a live show later, or at least I will do a live show later. Hopefully Sheets can join me. This is an interesting slate that's going to be depending on some news, but hopefully we've given you some pivots each way. And guys, please like and subscribe, and hit us up with any feedback, any thoughts, anything. We're here to answer questions and help you keep winning at DFS. We're happy it worked out for some of our followers last night, won some big tournaments, and let's keep it going tonight. So Sheets, any final thoughts?
Nope, sounds good. We'll catch you soon.
All right, guys, we'll talk to you later. Good luck, and we'll see you at the top of the leaderboards.